This week's episode of the Graveyard Shift Horror with Sheldon and Mike is brought to you by Vanessa K, who suggested the featured movie on our Twitter page. Thank you very much for the movie suggestion, Vanessa. If you have a movie you'd like us to cover on the show, just like Vanessa did, then just keep listening, and at the end of the episode, we're going to tell you all the ways you can contact us and make your suggestion. So now, let's begin. Mike, if you would, please play that scary music. Welcome to episode 60 of the Graveyard Shift Horror Podcast, where each week we watch a movie from the horror category and break it down into the good, the bad, and pretty much any other category we decide to make up. We'll talk about the plot, some production details, plus anything else we find fun or relevant. I'm your host Sheldon, and I never work the graveyard shift alone. Please say hello to my favorite swearwolf, my co-host Mike.
Fuck yeah, hello.
Mike, what's new in Mike land?
Having the nephew over for a sleepover, so if you hear any howling in the background that I didn't edit out, that's it. And I'm pretty good. Can't wait to see Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's just come out, so I'm just going to wait for the nephews to get ready and I'll be going seeing it with them. Looking forward to the summer. Pretty good.
Yeah.
How about you?
I'm looking forward to that one too. Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and we just totally dated this episode. But I'm looking forward to it. I've been hearing good things, so I want to check it out. So, I just got to ask, what did you think of this week's movie? Generally,
I enjoyed
overall.
it.
I thought it was fantastic. I was really surprised by how much I liked this movie. But anyway, so in regards to this, the theme of this week's movie, what do you think would be the worst part of being a vampire? Would be?
I would say like not being able to enjoy the sunlight,
Yeah.
but yeah, there are. I guess that would be the biggest thing. Although, like, you can still enjoy your bicycling, and although who needs to bike around when you can fly?
True. But yeah, that would be it for me. No sunlight, that would do it. I'm a beach person. I'm generally outdoorsy, I guess. So for stuff like that, I want to be in the sun. I mean, I don't want to hang out at the beach in the dark. But anyway, why am I asking vampire questions? And yes, it definitely has something to do with this week's movie. Mike, why don't you tell them what we've got for them this time around?
Today's episode is Wellington After Dark, because we watched What We Do in the Shadows.
We did indeed, and here's a little info on said movie. What We Do in the Shadows is a 2014 horror comedy mockumentary from New Zealand. It had a budget of $1.6 million and earned a $6.9 million profit. Well, hey, at least it's a profit. Man, this one has some love on Rotten Tomatoes, getting a 96% critic score and an 82% audience score. And both, in my opinion, both very well deserved. So, as for the plot of this one, a group of vampire housemates living in New Zealand cope with the day-to-day struggles of immortal life and the ups and downs of being a vampire in modern times. That pretty much sums it up. So, like I was saying, yeah, like I had a feeling I was going to like this movie, like just from the trailer that I watched first off when somebody suggested this one. I said, I think I'm going to like it. I think it's going to be okay. And that's pretty much...
Yeah, plus Taika Waititi, the comedy genius behind Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, that's right. Tokyo Wakanda. Yeah, I know. Like this was pretty amazing, and once I saw that too, I was like, that got me very excited because Thor Ragnarok is probably one of the best, if probably not my favorite superhero movie ever.
Like the best of the main Marvel movies. Like Guardians of the Galaxy was pretty much a side movie since it wasn't tied in with the rest of the movies until Infinity War. So as like part of like the main Earthbound, and well, again, look at it. It's not Earthbound. It's Thor, not on Earth, and Guardians of the Galaxy, not on Earth. It seems like being on Earth just makes everything more mundane in the Marvel universe. When they go to outer space, that's when it's just wacky shit from front to end.
Yeah, for sure. So once I realized that as well, I'm like, yeah, okay, I've got high expectations, and I was not disappointed. This movie is freaking awesome. I cannot believe I've gone this long without checking it out. But yeah, believe the hype. It's good. So of course, we are going to go into detail about what we liked and didn't like about this one. This can be as broad or general as we want. If we want to talk about an overall theme or get as specific as a certain scene, certain line of dialogue, certain character, whatever the case is, if we liked it, we'll talk about it. And if we don't like it, we'll probably talk about it even more. But we are going to start off with the good, and we will start off with Mike. So Mike, tell me something good about this movie.
Well, it's time to get back to... It's time to remain true to form, and the credits. The quick cuts of them throughout the decades and their... during their failed attempts to blend in fashionably with people around them. Well, the fact that, like, one of them is a fucking Nosferatu, so it doesn't matter if he has a powder blue leisure suit and big Elton John glasses. He's still going to stand out at the discotheque. And just, like, the drawings of them throughout the century before cameras were invented. Just to show, like, how they impacted history or how they were depicted by by people in their times. It was great. Intercut with them just floating around so that they could vacuum the ceiling or do like 5 years worth of dishes. It was just fantastic. And Vlad is posing like a model while Leo is just awkward in every single one of them.
Yeah.
Or Viago, that's who it is. I don't know who Leo was. Oh, there is no Leo. Fuck it. I'm just stupid. So, yeah, Taika Waititi as, like, the awkward Leo. In every pose he is, he's kind of like... He thinks he's looking calm and suave, but he still looks like he just doesn't belong in every photo. while Vlad is just treating it like... You want to drink me in? You can. You can undress me with your eyes. I'm used to it. I know the duties of the sexy.
Yeah, so that kind of ties in with my the first thing on my good list, and this is going to be something so broad, so we're going to probably have to give some specific examples, just like you did. But the humor in this movie, this may be one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I was cracking up throughout the whole thing. I was, like, at certain points I was physically in pain. And in a good way, because like you said, like, just the humor, this dry wit that they have, it was just brilliant. I just want to give some specific examples. Just mentioned about
that's most of my goods too. Just specific jokes.
Yeah, like, so yeah, maybe we should just like talk about that, like, at certain points, because you mentioned about like showing like through the credits. Them throughout the ages, like trying to adapt with the times, and
oh yeah, when Stu gives them devices and they're just trying to figure out like what you do with these face thing. You mean Facebook? Yeah, well, you can like something and you can even poke them, and then Vladislav's just like, yes, do that.
But yeah, and then it's talking about how they all became vampires, and basically the oldest vampire, the Nosferatu-looking guy, and I'm not going to remember anybody's names in this thing.
Pieter.
Yeah, I love that they had this.
He was amazing.
Just a Nosferatu-looking thing, like, or reminded me a lot of the Salem Lot vampires.
Yes.
And Oh my god, that was hilarious because he didn't say anything because he comes from the silent era, so he didn't actually speak.
I think he's older than language, so he just never felt the need to pick up on it.
Yeah, which I thought that was brilliant because if they're imitating Nosferatu, of course, which was a silent movie, so they have the Nosferatu style vampire never say anything. And,
Yeah, they try to invite him up to a group meeting. And they're just like, so, yeah, we're just having a group meeting if you'd like to take part in that. Okay, yeah, okay. Maybe I can get you a broom so you can, like, sweep up the spinal cords that you have left on the floor. Oh, no, all right, I brought you a chicken. Here, take that. It's like, it makes you wonder, like, has this guy just dominated the group? Because he seemed to be, like, pretty hip and friendly in the photo, so it makes you wonder if just, like, over the 8,000 years, only the last 20, he's become kind of a reclusive dick.
Yeah, he got a little cantankerous over the past couple of decades.
Oh, yeah.
And just the whole thing about them trying to cope with being in modern times, where their powers have gotten a little stale. And just one thing in particular, and I had to highlight this, is when one of the vampires was talking about Vlad, about how powerful he was, and how he used to turn into all kinds of fantastic beasts, and it's like, but now he's like, he can still turn, and he says, but he can't quite get the faces right. And we actually see him, like, and I mean, this is quite a while afterwards when they're stalking a victim through their house. And he turns into a cat.
But he's got his face.
But he has the
Vlad
face.
cat. That's one of my goods. The Vlad cat.
And he just hisses at them as you walk by, but it's just Vlad's face superimposed on his cat.
And the best part is, like, we even see them, like, floating in, like, Salem's Lot style, floating by some windows.
Oh yeah, like just I find it so hard to describe this movie because I just like start gushing over it, just talking about like certain points. But yeah, just everything the way it's shot is like they nail so many. They pay tribute to so many other vampire movies, like the way they're floating, like you said, like they nailed like the free floating Salem's Lot type vampire. The shape-shifting from, like, similar to Bram Stoker's Dracula, but, like, of course, like we said, can't quite get the faces right.
I just love... And the bickering that they had during that meeting. It's like, what? You need to stop getting blood on the couch. The red couch? It's red now!
Yeah, just... Like, if anything else, like, if this was in any other movie, this would sound so stupid, this type of humor, but for this movie, it works perfectly.
Oh, Vlad is, like, I think Vlad has to be my favorite guy, simply when the beginning he tells you, I was turned when I was 16. That is why I look 16 now. Of course, 16 was a tough age to be back then.
Yeah, because he's obviously like in his 40s. So.
And then the other guy, like the fancy dandy, he's bringing a date over to kill her, and he's putting down a newspaper on the floor. And it doesn't even work.
Yeah, because he even talks about how like he tries not to hit an artery. You have to be careful about when you're doing the bloodletting to try not to make a mess.
And then basically he's treating it like someone who's panicking because they opened up a shaken beer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's panicking. He's like scrambling around. He's trying to maneuver to spray around to try to point it down at the newspaper. And
then Vlad keeps asking for virgins. And even when they're just like, it shouldn't really affect the taste of the blood at all. No, but... And then he looks at the camera. Virgins are preferable because you would enjoy his sandwich more knowing that no one had fucked it.
Oh my god, we could just go through the whole, like, every single line of this movie and it would just be hilarious. But let's just say that the humor in this is fantastic. I love that every line was delivered, even the most mundane lines were delivered so well. And like this movie immediately made it onto one of my favorites lists. Like it is that good. So
when he's got that girl, he's got when Stu shows him how to work a scanner and a printer, and he finally he prints like a larger image of his locket, puts it on the inside of his coffin lid, closes it, and then you just see the lid tapping. Tap 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 tap. Oh my god, that was just. I think I'm out of specifics.
yeah,
Like I still,
like I said,
I still have some goods, but I think I'm out of specific bits.
If we're going to talk about specifics, I mean, I could just, like I said, I could just repeat every single line from the movie, and everyone would be fantastic. So yeah, I can't just go through the entire movie for this whole episode, but anyway, like the humor is definitely the highlight of this one, and so it's worthwhile just watching for that. But one of the things I got to say about this is that I think for actors that aren't really well known, they did a fantastic job. And I think some of the reason why is because of the role. Like this role called for, I don't really know how to describe it, but kind of like a grandiose type of mannerism. So really the acting is good because the role called for overacting, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, like I think like everybody played it off very naturally. Like the humans, even though everybody in this movie was just completely ridiculous. The people that were just ordinary humans, like everything came off very natural. Especially Stu, like he just seemed like just like a typical guy that just happened to be surrounded by vampires.
But because he is, the actor isn't an actor. He's an IT technician in real life.
Yeah, he actually played an IT technician.
And he was told that he would only have a bit part in the film, so he would act more relaxed. And he didn't know that he had a critical role in the movie until the film's premiere.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I remember reading that, and the thing is, though, like, that worked out perfectly because he just seemed like some normal, like, blue-collar Joe. And if they had hired an actor and say, hey, you're playing an IT guy, it wouldn't have worked. Like, you would have, said, like, hey, he's an actor. So, yeah, so this guy with, like, no acting skill pulled it off perfectly because he was just being himself. So, yeah, like, I was really impressed with how well, like, everybody, like, the entire cast came off so good. Okay, so what do you have next on your good list?
I gotta say, like, the entire scene where you get to see the werewolves locking themselves down, and the vampires just decide, we're gonna start some shit. And they piss off the werewolves while a full moon is coming out. They're trying to lock themselves up, but the vampires keep interfering. And then eventually the werewolves just go fucking berserk. And the vampires, you think, oh, well, now it's going to be vampires versus werewolves. But no, these vampires have started shit they cannot finish. They get their asses kicked and Stu gets mauled.
Yeah, poor Stu gets eviscerated by a werewolf. And yeah, that was so good because, like, of course they had to throw this in, like, the whole, like, werewolf vampire type of feud, but basically
and it took a genuine horror turn when they actually killed the camera crew.
Yep, it did. Like, that's probably as gory as the movie got. Like, there was some flashes of gore like that, but just the whole thing, because, like, you realize these are two different classes of immortal beings, and I mean, like, pitted against each other in countless movies before. This is old stuff now, been done to death, the whole vampire versus werewolf thing. But they did this in a way when they meet up with each other, it's just like, holy crap, it's like schoolyard bickering.
It's sharks versus jets.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you kind of forget that, like, haha, like, oh, this is funny. Like, they're just kind of, like, basically sometimes even boils down to, like, your mama jokes. And then all of a sudden it's like you kind of forget that these are monsters, and then they like shit hits the fan, the werewolves turn, and there's like an all-out brawl going on.
And the vampires are trying to float away, but instead of like hitting an altitude the wolves can't reach, they just get high enough so that the wolf can snag them by the legs and just like weigh them down or swing them around.
Yeah.
It's like a smart vampire could probably take out a werewolf or two, but there are no smart vampires here.
No, they've definitely lost their luster, for sure. So let's... this kind of leads up naturally to my next point on my good list, and that's all the vampire tropes that it hits. And I'm talking about, like, the immortality part, dealing with being immortal, not having a reflection.
Which the shit they do with a mirror.
Oh my god, that was fantastic when they're talking about...
Look at me, I am a ghost.
Because he actually addressed, like, the whole not, the trouble of not having a reflection is that, you can look at your clothes and see, like, pick out your nice clothes, but you can't really tell what it looks like on you.
Well, as soon as the clothes go on them, the clothes become invisible too. Otherwise, they would just look like headless clothes.
Yeah.
So, and the worst part is that they end up doing hasty sketches,
trying on outfits
for
and then
each other
sketches
to be like, this is what you look like,
making sketches of each other and say like, oh, that's pretty good. That's not bad. I look good.
And it's completely ignoring the fact that cameras have existed, Polaroids have existed for the last 30 years. They could have had that at least like up until the last 10 years, and then, just get a cell phone and just like take a picture and just be like, this is what you look like. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I don't think their images come out on camera either.
They do. We've seen pictures of them when they're in the opening credits.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
We see pictures of them at clubs.
Yep.
And when Stu brings over the Instaburst camera, it shows like Vlad taking a bunch of like snapshots.
True. Yep, that's right. So yeah, they could just do that, which makes no sense. So, but yeah, like I guess they're kind of like me. They're not smart enough to realize that.
Yeah, they're immortal and stupid.
Yeah, very. But yeah, just like addressing and then like talking about like how they get their clothes, because it's like, okay, do vampires actually go out and shop for their clothes? And it's like, no, it's like most of the clothes they have, and one of them even talks about it, it's basically for victims, because sometimes you're just biting somebody's neck and you happen to look down and say, wow, those are really nice pants.
And even then, most of their clothes look like, if anything, they were killing people from an Anne Rice Comic-Con.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, who in downtown Wellington would be walking around with a fucking bustier or a cravat?
I've never been there, so I can't speculate.
I mean, I don't think the men in blouse scene is very prominent in that particular New Zealand town. But what the fuck do I know?
Mm-hmm. And then of course they had to deal with the whole vampire hunter type thing, the Van Helsing wannabes.
That there are vampire hunters. And that the guy actually says, hey, I'm a vampire. Hey, I'm a vampire hunter. Oh, that's funny. I'll give you my email. Yeah. And he does.
There's no such thing as like they're because that was one of the things they talked about how like how discreet they have to be. Then he just go to a bar and just blurt it out. It's like, I'm a vampire. And of course, a vampire hunter actually tracks them down to the house and takes out poor old Peter.
Actually, he doesn't. Peter takes him out by opening up his slab, and because of the entry he made into the room, that's when the sunlight catches Peter on fire. He didn't even get to see Peter die.
No, that whole scene. Well, we do, because you do actually see him on fire.
Yeah. But the guy's already crushed under the slab, because that's how Peter got out, to get hit by the sunlight.
Yeah. So that scene, too, fantastic. It's like they hear a commotion, they run downstairs, they see smoke, they open up, and poor Peter's in flames, just writhing in flames, running around all over the place. They come running with a bowl of water.
Well, I thought it was like a little water jug for flowers.
Oh,
a
maybe
flower
that's it.
watering jar, and he's like trying to like sprinkle it down the stairs. It's like, nope. It's because these guys are so old and stupid. Nobody ever heard of stop, drop, and roll, or have a fire extinguisher in the house.
Yeah. So just again, like the whole thing dealing with just all the vampire tropes like get addressed here. Like everything that you've ever thought about. Like, hey, how do vampires do this if they can't do this type of thing? They bring up everything. So I guess these guys, when they made this movie, they had the exact same thoughts.
The only thing it doesn't address is how could a vampire masturbator have sex when they don't have a pulse to send blood to that spot? That's the only thing it didn't address. But then again, whoever does.
That's you're the only person that would ever think of that.
Well, I also thought of the solution where you just basically, get a rubber band and just wrap it around the base to keep the blood.
And again, you're the only person that would think of that. So, I think that's more of a Mike problem than it's a general vampire fan problem. Okay,
yeah, way to make me feel like an outcast.
Yeah, not like you haven't felt that way before.
That's true.
So, okay, what else do you have for your good? Because basically, if I keep going, I'm just going to mention every single scene of this movie.
I gotta say the end credits. When I was just scanning through the end credits, one of the titles is like between like gaffers, cameraman, crew, stuff like that, is a vampirologist.
So they actually had like a vampire expert on set.
At least they claimed like that. That just that name caught me among like gaffers, cameraman, and then all of a sudden vampirologist. It's like, this isn't a cast member, this is a crew. And in part of the extra thanks sections, it has like a whole page full of people, and at the very bottom it says, and Swifty the cat.
So I guess that was the Vlad cat?
And then when... I guess it was the cat that they superimposed Vlad's face on.
Yeah.
And then the final part of the credits was the post-credit mind wipe, where we've got that same guy, what the hell is his name? Deacon. He's looking up at the camera and he's just like, you will remember none of this movie.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that scene. Like, when you were saying it, I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? Holy shit, did the mind wipe work? Wow, I completely forgot about that.
One thing I liked about Deacon, or at least what I noticed about Deacon, the young rebel of the group, is that he looked like a very disheveled and unkempt Justin Trudeau.
So basically, you're saying he looks like Justin Trudeau.
Or teen Justin Trudeau. Like, if he lost any of his boxing matches.
Nah. Oh my god. Yeah, this is so good. So I gotta ask, like, how happy were you when you actually saw that Stu had survived the werewolf attack?
I actually had to remove from the bad how upset I was that Stu was actually dead. And then he showed up at the end, and I'm just like, okay, fuck, I gotta pause this movie before I find out what happened to Stu, although he's clearly a werewolf. And I just have to remove my bad section. Because Stu lived.
Stu lived. And actually, because of that, because Stu actually didn't kind of... he was kind of the arbiter of peace between the vampires and the werewolves.
Yeah, it was like Underworld. He was the bridge between reuniting the Lycan and the vampire groups.
Yep.
Just by being a swelled fella.
Yeah. I actually cheered. I actually clapped a little bit when I saw that. It's like, yes, Stu lives. He's a vampire.
I was genuinely happy and almost teared up a bit. I'm just like, Stu, yay! Like, I was going to be genuinely upset that they killed Stu.
Yeah, I was happy enough just because they made the familiar a vampire at the end.
She got her wish.
She got her wish, and she turns into a total bitch. So yeah, that was good. Oh, and I almost forgot about the vampire convention.
Oh, it was just so great. They got zombies there, and
oh yeah,
and
because it's all kinds of monsters.
and that
there.
guy's pissed off, like, oh yeah, all the stereotypes of like, brains, blah. But it is really hard to catch up to people when your body's rotting.
Yeah, so they even start addressing some of the problems with other monsters, like fictional monsters. Oh.
And when we see the camera pan, everybody's dancing up a storm, including Stu. And then we see a mirror, and it's just Stu and the zombie on the fucking dance floor. There was never a scene that wasn't fucking hilarious.
No, that's what I said. Like, I could just go through every single line of this movie. The whole thing was just amazing. But, yeah, so other than, like, specific scenes or certain jokes, do you have anything else on your good list?
No, I'm ready to take on what I imagine to be the very short bad section.
Oh, yeah. Like, this is going to be a short episode because I don't want to, like, just, go from point A to start to finish for the movie, but also it leaves very little bad to talk about. And really, I've only got one bad thing on my list. And the bad really doesn't even apply to me. All I had to say for the bad was this mockumentary style may not be for everybody. I mean, there's other movies that take the form like this kind of approach, and I know some people are just not going to enjoy it. Some people, it doesn't cater to certain people's sense of humor. Some people are not going to get it. It's not like I guess it's not like a kind of like North American type of comedy where everything is like where you build up to huge gags. This is just kind of like not subtle humor, but you know what I mean, like more subdued humor throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, there were very few. It doesn't really. They always tend to fit as movies sometimes, but like we tried doing one very similar in North America with Death Valley. Do you remember that show?
Oh yeah,
it was a black comedy horror fiction mockumentary. I enjoyed it, but it just it only lasted one season.
Yeah. I do remember that. I've only watched a couple episodes, but I do remember enjoying it, but not enough that made me, obviously, want to continue following it. But, yeah, it's just that certain people are... there's a reason why this movie is not a huge blockbuster is because it caters to a specific type of humor, and it's not going to be for everybody. I know that, and once again, that does not apply to me whatsoever because I thought this was damn hilarious. But I totally get why some people are not going to appreciate it the way that we did.
Oh, by the way, I just found out that the actress who played Jackie won Best Supporting Actress at the New Zealand Film Awards for this role. For this role.
Oh, cool. And she was the familiar, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's good. No, deserving. Like I said, the acting in this was pretty damn good. I enjoyed it. So do you have anything for the bad?
Well, when I was talking to somebody, telling them I was reviewing this movie tonight, I said, I'm really low on bads. And they said, I've got one. And I'm like, well, what is it? And they said the movie was, like, way too short.
Yeah, that's not really a problem for me.
It's like, no, it was kind of like 85 minutes, which was, like, right in the 90-minute sweet spot. Yeah. So it ended before you had a chance to get tired of it, so I couldn't count that as a bad.
No,
I mean to her, she loved this movie so much. Like it would have been great if there was another hour.
Yeah, I kind of understand that when somebody says something like that, it's like, oh, I liked it so much, I wish it was longer. But then again, I'm like, if it was longer, then it probably would have been like just filler at it in, and you wouldn't have enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, so. Like it's hard to imagine how much longer this movie could have been while not having any filler or scenes that just don't add anything. Mm-hmm. But I do have one bad just because I had to put something in here, and that is I think the camera crew really needs to. The camera crew, I can't imagine legally how or morally how these people can make peace with being accessories to multiple murders.
Where they just film people being drained of their blood.
Like, they know what's going to happen. None of them are warning anybody. None of them are, like, trying to offer any assistance. It's just like, yeah, we're going to watch this person bleed out and die, and we're not even going to, like, blank out their face so that their family won't have to, like, watch this movie and see their child being slaughtered.
Yeah, that was so good.
And the fact that, like, when Nick is being chased around the house and the camera crew's following him.
They're literally running after him.
It's like I thought it would be funny if, like, he holds the door open because he thinks he's saving their lives, and they're just stalling so that Vlad can get behind them and sneak into the room. And I think he does. Like, Deacon gets behind him, and I think Deacon, like, turned into a mouse or something and snuck into his backpack because he comes out of his backpack.
Yeah.
And the camera crew is just following him around like they are right next to a person who is being chased and going to be murdered. Absolutely. And the camera crew, all of them are just like, we have no objection to this. We signed a waiver, so no crisis of conscience here.
Yeah, so that...
so that's my bad. Like, these camera crew people are fucking despicable.
And that's not really a bad. I think that actually makes it kind of funny, but I understand. Like, that's a borderline, like, what the fuck, but...
No, I got one for that, but it's...
Of course you do. Okay, well, that's all I had for the
we're
bad.
at 40. We're not even at 40 minutes, okay? So we need to pad the show.
No, we don't. Give people a break. Jesus. Use a break from our rambling.
We're already giving them a break from something else.
That's okay. They'll be fine with that. Okay, so what would you tell us what you got for a WTF?
One question that I just had to ask is, no, it doesn't occur to anybody, not the camera crew, not Stu, not anybody, that anyone could suggest to these vampires that they only drink like a bit of 5 people a night instead of just murdering one. And then just mind wipe them, send them home, make them say like, "Oh, too bad you cut yourself shaving." "Oh yeah, I cut myself shaving. Why did I nick my neck like that?" "I don't know. You're pretty clumsy, but you better go home." "Oh, you're right." If they're worried about the police showing up, I mean, like, we live in the modern age. Like, they've established Facebook exists in this world. They are killing people with social media presences. They are killing people who will be missed. People who won't update their Twitters or Facebooks. Like, people who just don't go home to their families or their jobs. People will notice people are missing.
Yeah, well, they're not smart. So.
Yeah, so you think someone would have to tell them, you know what, why don't you just nick a bit of, like, a fifth of a person and just nail 5 people a night so that nobody ends up dead and that the cops don't show up?
Why indeed. Okay, so for next, Mike, I'm trying to think of what you could even pick for this, because I mean, you do have some options. I'm just not sure what's going to stand out to you for your next segment.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to take some things. For a movie that doesn't even take itself seriously, it's hard to come up with something really epic for the kill of the week. But I think I've got to give it to the Vampire Hunter.
Yeah.
I mean, it is such, like, it looks like a one-note joke where this guy is just being a dick at a bar, or he's just, like, being a jackass. And then he shows up later, and even though he doesn't live to see it, he has killed Peter by breaking open the window, and then before seeing Peter burst into flames, and we get to see that he's prepared. He's got a crucifix that scares the hell out of them even after death. And he's got a whole bandolier full of steaks, which are table legs that have just been sanded down. And for a guy with all this preparation, He never expected to just get crushed by a vampire's lid. By a vampire's coffin lid.
Yeah, by the slab. Just...
Yeah. So, I mean, for that one-note joke to come back and be a critical turning point in the movie because it's killed one of the main characters. So, I guess that's got to be like the most epic contributable kill of the week. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's just like, which girl ends up getting an artery nicked and hosing everything down with blood?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, the majority of the kills are going to be almost pretty much on the same level. So, like, Pieter's death was pretty much the only different one.
That wasn't like a Japanese cartoon, a Japanese ninja cartoon death, where people are just high pressure blood hoses.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, guys, that is what we do in the shadows. A little bit shorter episode than normal. That's just because both Mike and I got a lot of stuff going on, and we're recording this super late. So hopefully by next week we'll get back on track with our usual time slot, I guess. I don't want to say time slot, but our usual runtime, I guess, would be more accurate. We
didn't have a lot to talk about this movie, but we will get to see more of what we do in the shadows because the producers are making a procedural comedy series based on the two cops that show up, Karen and Mike. And that is a 6-episode miniseries that is airing this month, July. So there's that. And they're also... What?
Yeah, definitely going to have to check that out.
Yeah, and they're also making an American series of the film on FX. And it's going to be starring Kevin Novak, Natasha Demetriou. So, like, there's a woman in the main cast, so it's not going to be these characters. It's going to be like an American equivalent, I suppose. But the big addition is going to be having Matt Berry. And if you watch the IT Crowd, Matt Berry was the insane boss that took over after the last boss disappeared or died.
Probably not going to be checking that one out, just because these types of things, when you get Americanized, they're not as good.
Except these guys are all British, like, comedy geniuses.
No, maybe.
So,
we'll see.
Like Matt Berry, he was in the IT Crowd, Mighty Boosh, Snuffbox, The Wrong Door, House of Fools. So this guy's like a comedy juggernaut. So
yeah, but still, like, things get, just because if it's done with an American production company, that and you get some other fingers in the pie.
Wilford was good.
Was it?
Yeah, I liked it.
Okay. But anyway, so be on the lookout for that. And that this movie is on Netflix. You have Netflix, check it out. It's right there. I'm sure there's other sources you can find it to for you pirates out there, but be good. We're not going to recommend any of those sources. Just watch it on Netflix. But that is our coverage for what is this called? What We Do in the Shadows. Jesus Christ.
Which basically describes my podcasting style.
Pretty much. But guys, what do you think? Have you seen this movie? If you haven't, then definitely. I fully recommend it. Easily 9 out of 10 for me. But check it out and let us know what you think. Did you agree with what we had to say about it? Did we miss some things that you want to talk about? Or did you have another movie recommendation for us? Then you've got some options for getting in contact with us. First of all, you can email us at graveyardshiftpod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at GYS_horrorpod, on Facebook at facebook.com/thegraveyardshiftpod, or on Instagram at instagram.com/thegraveyardshiftpod. Guys, this show is free to listen to, but it is not free to produce. We actually have to take the money out of our own pockets to get this show to you every week. So if you are feeling particularly generous with your hard-earned cash, you can go on over to www.patreon.com/graveyard and make a donation to help keep the show running, help us out with some of the expenses of producing and distributing the show.
And once that's taken care of, everything remaining over will be put into my eventual legal defense fund.
That's coming, for sure. If you had a job, I'd say you're a walking HR case. But yeah, you guys, and of course, being a donor is not without its rewards. For as little as $1 a month, not only do you help us out greatly with the costs of running the show, you get instant access to all kinds of nice Patreon bonuses. Every month, we put up a new Patreon exclusive episode that only our donors can get access to. And we do it a little different than what we do with this regular show, is where we get to let loose and do, step outside the box. We don't just watch movies. Sometimes we'll check out some TV shows, even video games on occasion, do some top 10 lists, all kinds of fun things like that. So check that out. But of course, we understand not everybody has the money to give us money, but you can still help us out a ton. The best way to do that is to go on over to iTunes, rate, review, subscribe. In the long run, honestly, that is the best way to help us. If you're not an Apple user, then however you're finding our podcast, I'm sure there's some kind of rating and reviewing system. So if you could help us out there with a nice review and a nice 5-star rating, not trying to force your hand or anything, but seriously, we'd appreciate it. And of course, sharing us on social media also helps a lot, and even by word of mouth. Just if you know people that you think will be interested in the show, listening to both of us talk about horror movies, then let them know about us, and they can check it out themselves. So, Mike, other than the Graveyard Shift, what other things you got going on in Mike Land?
You can hear me talking about old Nintendo games on the Taste Test and reviewing Nintendo Power Magazine on the Playing with Power podcast. Both of those are found on the Playing with Power podcast feed, where it's just basically Nintendo era goodness. So Nintendo games, Nintendo magazines, that's all going to be there. And any Nintendo news we often do in a little press pause there as well. And also I do a tech discussion podcast, tech, science, chemistry, anything to do with amazing developments that make the world a better place or may destroy it, is on Technobabble, my very first podcast, which is on the Geek Fallout Productions podcast feed, or at Facebook as well. So go there to check out the show, because it's not called Technobabble, the feed, because it's got all the other episodes that were on that network before we took it over, and we're preserving it for our posterity. So it's called Geek Fallout Productions, but the only new show is Technobabble, my show with Rich Reader.
Awesome. Yep, all quality shows, and you guys should definitely check them out. So thank you again for joining us. We're going to be back next week with coverage of another horror movie selected by one of you guys that, at the moment, I have no idea which one that's going to be, because I need to check the list. But we'll be back again, like I said, with some more coverage. Guys, thank you all so much for all the feedback and all the messages, and just for all the good vibes you're sending. Like a little while ago, if you remember, we mentioned about kind of a bad experience we had with something related to the podcast, and it was a bit of a, it kind of bummed us out a little bit. But that's just one instance of something negative that has come our way since we did this podcast. Everything else has been so good. You guys just send so much positivity our way, and we thank you very much for that. Nothing but love to all of you, and please keep it up, and we'll keep it up as well. So
even if we need a rubber band.
Jesus Christ. Just stick a knife right through the heart of my nice heartfelt sentiment there, Mike.
I was just like, I'm just going to let him have a nice, sweet, tender moment. Oh, wait, a straight line. I can't resist. Call back.
But we are going to be back next week with more horror movie goodness. Until then, I'm Sheldon.
And I'm Mike.
And thank you again for joining us on The Graveyard Shift. Ha 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 ha!